Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Kyle here with our Bitcoin price action update. And I see that Bitcoin is attempting to play out that bounce that we've been looking for. And got as high today is around, very close to the $43,000 mark. Maybe a little bit closer to 42,500 there. And is having a little bit, it's stalling out a little bit here right now. But I think volatility is simply going to be the name of the game as Bitcoin tries to find its footing around these levels. There are some positive things that I'm seeing shape up in the chart. And number one is this really nice stick of volume coming in here, getting above that moving average on yesterday's candle to the downside. We see a beautiful wick coming off this horizontal, and when we look left, we can see that that horizontal is lining up with a major pivot point on the market here, as you can see right there. And that pivot point is actually quite obvious even on a weekly chart as well. So very nice to see that reaction coming in off of there. And so far, we're seeing a pretty good wick get printed here on the weekly candle. And this weekly candle still has 3 days remaining. So we'll have to be patient, see how this closes. But to see this kind of a response off that level is looking pretty good. Let's go into the CME chart here because there's something interesting happening there as well. And on the CME chart, we see a gigantic stick of volume here. I mean, that's even more volume than on spot. So that's nice to see. Lots of buying interest at this major pivot point on the market. So that is overall a positive thing. Of course, recapping on yesterday's video, some of the areas of interest that we're watching to the upside was this Euro spot 382, and you see price action was reaching for that area, and it's just simply stalling out at this point in time. I'm not looking at this as a rejection, as it's way too early to call that kind of thing, and things are simply going to be volatile. I think it would be unwise to be making any certain decisions, especially when there is no certainty with anything anyways. But we do see it stalling out there. Nothing that's setting off any alarm bells for me, as like I said before, volatility is likely the name of the game. Now, we also talked about this being Wyckoff distribution. It certainly got confirmed on the breakdown phase. And so after Wyckoff gets confirmed, usually you look for what's known as the throwback. And that's could be what's in play right now. So another area that we'll be watching is a 0 spot 5 coming in around 47,400. And that is a very common area where a throwback can play out to. And if you start to see signs of weakness in that area, that can lead to a markdown phase. But of course, I'm not predicting that or looking for it necessarily. It's just something I like to keep on my radar as a condition so that I can be reactive to price action if it decides to do that. Now, I am still macro bullish on Bitcoin. It would have to take out this level down below and start giving us a weekly downtrend for me to be looking at this through the lens of a bear. At this point in time, I just look at Bitcoin firing off a bit of warning shot. At the very least, it's letting a lot of the newcomers know to the space what it's capable of, having these very massive retraces to the downside. But as of right now, based on the reaction that I'm seeing, there's certainly a solid chance that we might be seeing a bottom in this overall greater correction. But we'll look for the confirmations of that as Bitcoin tries to take out some of these levels back to the upside. Or if it starts confirming down below this horizontal here, then perhaps we can look at it from a bearish lens at that point in time. But that's way too far off. Just because we're seeing a little bit of volatility here doesn't lead me to make any major decisions. Again, I have the areas I laid out in the last video. 0 spot 382. We're seeing price hesitate there right now a little bit. None of us are caught off guard by that, as that is an area that we talked about yesterday's video. If the throwback continues, so the bounce that we've been looking for, 0 spot 5 coming in around that $47,500 mark. If Bitcoin starts to take out those levels there, the third area that we're watching to the upside is the 0 spot 618 coming in around 51,500. And as you can see in that area as well, we see all these moving averages continuing to fire off these bearish crosses, and they're just simply implying a lot of downside pressure. So as Bitcoin comes into contact with those areas on its way to the upside, it's going to have to fight through that. So this could even take some time. I mean, we might see quite a bit of volatility here in the near term, and then perhaps we just see things slowly grind their way back to the upside. And of course, we watch these key levels. If we see any signs of weakness around the 0 spot 618, that's a fairly classic area for a bull trap. Everybody by that point gets bullish on the market again, and then market movers could easily step into that point. You can call it market manipulation, whatever you want to call it. I mean, all these things are certainly present within the markets, and that's what we need to know when we start getting invested in Bitcoin or altcoins, or if we're going to trade this sector. Just know that is a reality, and it's par for the course. And the best that we can do is put some conditions in place to the best of our knowledge so that we can react to these kinds of things to the best of our ability. So we have risk management in place and areas of interest where we place on our buys and take profits and strategize. We can only do the best that we can with that. Now, if it starts taking out the 618, well, before we talk about that, keep in mind, remember, we have the all-time high here, lower low, lower high, and obviously at the very least a lower low if Bitcoin does play out a bounce here. So if Bitcoin did reject from the 0.618, of course we'd have another lower high in this daily downtrend that is beginning to plague the chart. Again, not a death sentence until I start seeing it take out this horizontal down below, but that is that would be certainly implying perhaps the markdown phase could begin of the after the Wyckoff distribution, which is very much confirmed at this point in time. What would be more encouraging for me is if Bitcoin starts, grinding its way up. I don't care if it wants to take its time doing it. It very much could. I don't like putting a time stamp on things, as I simply don't have a crystal ball. I just look for these conditions to be met so that I can have an actionable plan. But if Bitcoin does start taking out, the $59,000 mark, it'll be wiping out this lower high right here and essentially undoing that daily downtrend that is applying a lot of pressure right now. And that would be very encouraging, because from that moment there, we'll be looking to this purple box liquid zone that I've drawn in at the top. And that is a top side coming in around the $65,000 mark. And if Bitcoin starts closing up above there, which I think, it has a strong chance of doing that over time, then we can start entertaining the funner targets. That's when we're talking about the upside targets versus all this downside target stuff. And so we see some of the short-term targets that we could entertain. Now, keep in mind, it could take time here. First of all, we need to see this bounce play out. We need to see Bitcoin take out some of those levels that I was mentioning. But over time, when it starts closing there, the short-term targets from that moment in time would be the 1.414. Coming in right around the $79,000 mark. And then up above, that's another very, very common target around the 1.618, which is actually right up around $86,000. So those would be the funner targets that we can talk about if Bitcoin can start undoing some of this dumpy dump action here, and then things could be looking good from there. Let's quickly check into the momentum oscillators. We see that the RSI did get oversold here. It's trying to bounce. It's got itself angled to the upside here. We do see the exponential getting into the bearish control zone. So that applies pressure, but we'll have to see if the RSI can spit its way back out of that, regain that, then things would be looking overall good from there. Down below the stochastics, they're searching for a cross back to the upside here, but we'll have to see how this daily candle body closes in the next approximately 7 hours before we get any confirmations there. And as you can see, today's been very, very volatile. Let's just measure this out here. We've already seen a bounce get as high as the top of this wick here, which is 42%. And then from that moment, and all in the same day, mind you, we've now seen price action retrace 8% to the downside, and that is that's actually a $3,500 move. In a matter of hours. Volatility is certainly here right now. So we'll have to. That's why I like those confirmations there. So we'll have to see if that gets across the upside. If it does, that'd be good luck on the board for the stochastics, as it would be implying some pressure up. Down here in the MACD, we do see that the negative momentum is beginning to wane. But again, this is not a confirmed bar of momentum here. It could just as easily print us another nasty bar here. But it would be nice to see these lighter colored bars start to get printed, as it would be signaling to us that the selling could be waning a bit, that maybe the sellers are out of ammunition or the market manipulators. But until we get those confirmations, it's really hard to tell. But right now, I see that Bitcoin has hit our first area of interest at the 0.382. It's hesitating. We also see that the 200 exponential moving average comes in around that area. And so we're seeing some confluence there as well. So it's not a surprise that Bitcoin's having a bit of a struggle with that right now. So of course, I'm going to keep my eyes on this, bring you guys some updates, likely daily updates for the next little while here, as we're on, as Bitcoin has fired a warning shot here. Again, though, I want to remind you that I'm not macro bullish or macro bearish until I start seeing price action take out this level here. Until it does that, I still look at this with a bullish bias, and I still look at this that it has a strong chance to get back up to some of these levels here. But we can only take things level by level and day by day on candle body closures. But as of right now, just because we're seeing a bit of a hesitation here, I'm not looking at that like, oh, there it is, it's going to roll here. Again, it's just volatility, as price action made a pretty bad move to the downside. There's lots of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the market. As you know, it's been an absolute shitstorm when it comes to Twitter right now and market manipulators. And then there's China for the 100th time. So yeah, seeing some volatility play out here is not necessarily unusual. But I'll bring some daily updates for a little while here, at least for the short term on Bitcoin. As we know, when Bitcoin sneezes, the alts can catch a cold, and this can have an adverse effect on some of our favorite altcoins, which for the most part seem to be moving in lockstep with this right here. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing well. And thanks so much for coming by and checking out this video. And I'm sure looking forward to seeing the next one. And until I do, take care.